Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're doing as well as you can be doing, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Warm welcome to any new subscribers. I've noticed that every time I make new videos, I get new subscribers. And then as I leave the channel for a bit, for whatever reason and for whatever amount of time, uh, the subscriber count goes down. So I don't know if YouTube is wiping out accounts again or what's going on. We'll see what happens after today's effort. And then I also want to say to those of you who have been here since the start, to those of you who've been here a couple of years, thank you. Thanks for being here. Um, and then to those of you who have sent me private messages of encouragement or appreciation, um, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I truly don't know what else to say because I am speechless when I get those messages. I can't believe that this humble channel in some dark corner of YouTube means something to other people. Um, as you can see, there isn't a lot of artistry or technical skill that goes into the production of these videos. And while I'm close, I'm not the most attractive or charismatic person on the internet, which means that what resonates with people is the message from this channel and the ideas that are brought up on this channel. And that does mean a lot. It means a lot to know that that's what's resonating with people. So thank you. And boy, oh boy, the message, the idea that we're going to talk about today is one of fundamental, if not existential, importance. So let me just set up the stage for you. A few days ago, the trending topic on Twitter, in the UK at least, was the Great Replacement. And if you've been following this channel and you follow similar channels or commentators, you know what is the Great Replacement and how important it is that more people are aware of its existence and that it's happening. And as this was the trending topic, subsequently, another topic arose, which was the idea of the indigenous or native British people, British population. And what I saw on Twitter was just maddening and inspired me to crack open the laptop and make a video because I love this topic. I love this topic of who we are, where we come from, because it involves history and especially ancient history, which I love. And like I said, this topic is of fundamental importance. But not only that, it's just fun and fascinating. It is fascinating to trace our ancestry and the footsteps of our ancestors and to see where we come from and how we got here. It's just fun and fascinating. And so when I saw that all these blue checkmark types and brackets, academics, brackets, were doing their damnedest to deny the existence of the Great Replacement and deny the idea, the existence of the indigenous British people and Europeans, ostensibly, um, it just filled me with disgust. It's like an instant disgust reaction. I hate these people. I cannot stand what they're doing because what they're doing, the lies that they are putting into untold numbers of people's brains, is so toxic and so dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Genocidal levels of danger we're talking here. Because to deny that the great replacement is happening is to deny reality and to deny an existential threat to uh, a great many populations, native populations. But then they go a step further and they even deny that the native populations are a thing. And this is very, very, very scary stuff. And we need to take it head on. So I want to talk about this. And we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of these people, and I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's important. And I know it's like, yeah, okay, they're hypocrites. What a surprise! Blue check marks, global homo, lefty progressive, socialist, communist types are hypocrites. We know this, and their hypocrisy bears no consequences. But it's important to point it out because the topic of ancestry and um, where we come from, etc. But it's increasingly involving things like genetics and DNA, and we might feel like we, have um, unsure footing in this topic because if you're not an archaeologist or an anthropologist or a geneticist, then you don't know what you're talking about because it is a big world of terminologies like haplogroups and things like that. And I'm not a geneticist and I'm not an anthropologist, but I am a guy who knows how to read. I'm a guy with powers of observation who notices patterns and has a very high sense of knowing when I'm being bullshitted. And what these people, the blue checkmark types on Twitter, are trying to make us believe is just so blatantly, obviously false and dangerously false. So let's take it on. The first tweet that I want to look at, I managed to get some screenshots because some of these people did delete their tweets, but I managed to get some screenshots before they were deleted. And one that I want to take a look at comes from an MP, actually. So, government official denying the existence of native British people. This is how far the rot has gotten. So anyway, she says, quote, "I thought hard before posting this because knee-jerk reactions help no one. But as the daughter of a Malaysian immigrant, this is personal. The idea of indigenous people of Britain and use of this term, especially by the far right, needs to be challenged at every point." Okay, now, people like this MP, Sarah Owen, deny or negate the idea of native or indigenous British people due to the fact that the modern British people, are the product or the descendants of a mixed ancestry. Anglos, Saxons, Normans, etc. And yet, if we were to apply that same reasoning to Sarah Owen, the daughter of a Malaysian immigrant, well, we have a very interesting situation on our hands because Sarah Owen, MP, daughter of a Malaysian immigrant, what does it mean to be Malaysian? Who's Malaysian? Because if you just type in Malaysian people and you click on the first result, which is Wikipedia, and you scroll down to the first paragraphs, this is what Wikipedia has to say about the people of Malaysia. And I quote, "There is considerable genetic, linguistic, cultural, artistic, and social diversity among the many Malay subgroups, mainly due to hundreds of years of immigration and assimilation of various regional ethnicities and tribes within maritime Southeast Asia." Stop there. In other words, exactly the same process, the same happenstance of the peoples of Britain, the descendants of the assimilation of various ethnicities and tribes in a region of the world. Let's continue. Quote, "Historically, the Malay population is descended primarily from the earlier Malayic-speaking Austronesians and Austroasiatic tribes who founded several ancient maritime trading states and kingdoms, notably blah, 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 blah." There's here a list of perhaps half a dozen different kingdoms. Well, there you have it, Sarah Owen MP. The Malaysians are the descendants, are the product of a mixed ancestry of several different tribes, different ethnicities, and different kingdoms. Yet somehow I doubt that Sarah Owen MP would deny the existence of the Malaysian people and their status as an indigenous people, as the native population. Let's carry on. This comes from another blue checkmark on Twitter, Dr. Rachel Pope. And she was the most fun. She was one who deleted her tweets because she was coming out with some real corkers. she said this. This is one of her many great hits. Quote, "There is just no way that indigenous can be claimed for Britain. The argument being made is that there is surviving Mesolithic DNA, which is true and well known. But indigenous requires no non-indigenous DNA, which is clearly not the case in Britain." And then she goes on to cite the Cambridge Dictionary definition of indigenous, which is naturally existing in a place or country rather than arriving from another place. Okay, so again, let's use that same rubric, that same standard, the one that has been given to us by Dr. Rachel Pope, and apply that to, let's say, the peoples of Palestine, the Palestinians. I wonder if Rachel Pope would deny the existence of the Palestinian people and their status as the native people of that area, and their claim to a homeland, and the right to exist in a land of their own. Because here is what a Palestinian anthropologist by the name of Ali, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Kleibo, Qleibo, this is what he has to say. Quote, "Throughout history, a great diversity of peoples has moved into the region and made Palestine their home. Canaanites, Jebusites, Philistines from Crete, Anatolian and Lydian Greeks, Hebrews, Amorites, Edomites, Nabateans, Arameans, Romans, Arabs, and Western European Crusaders, to name a few. Each of them appropriated different regions that overlapped in time and competed for sovereignty in land. Others, such as ancient Egyptians, Hittites, Persians, Babylonians, and the Mongol raids of the late 1200s, were historical events whose successive occupations were as ravaging as the effects of major earthquakes. Like shooting stars, the various cultures shine for a brief moment before they fade out of official historical and cultural records of Palestine. The people, however, survive. In their customs and manners, fossils of these ancient civilizations survived until modernity, albeit modernity camouflaged under the veneer of Islam and Arabic culture." Interesting, end quote. The people survive. The culture changes, but the people survive. But look at that. What a mixed ancestry. All those different names of different civilizations, different tribes, different ethnicities that form now the modern Palestinian. So would Dr. Rachel Pope and Sarah Owen, MP, deny that the Palestinians exist? They have a mixed ancestry, just like the British. No, they only single out the British. Their own people, by the way. I mean, yeah, the MP is the daughter of a Malaysian immigrant, but ostensibly she must be part British. They only do this to their own people or to their host nation. It's just very diabolical. It's very dangerous. Because, as another tweet of Rachel Pope's illustrates, these people are going very quickly towards a genocidal mindset, or at least one that would be implicit, let's say. Because Rachel Pope goes on to say this, quote, "The indigenous British weren't white. The aDNA science is repeatedly showing an absence of the genetic code linked to pale white skin pigmentation. Same results out of different labs. There's no great replacement if the first occupants of this island weren't even white. I'm going to repeat that. There is no great replacement if the first occupants of this island weren't even white. End quote there. Do you see? There can be no great replacement of a people who don't really exist. You can't replace people who don't exist. The original population of the British Isles, the island of Great Britain, they weren't white. So therefore, anyone can live there. Any population can replace any other population. There is no native Brit. But this is very interesting also because the indigenous British, the original occupants of the island, weren't white like we are white today perhaps, but they weren't black. They weren't sub-Saharan African black. They might have been tan due to a need or an exposure to more sun, as this was, after the ice age. There's more sun in the atmosphere. The climate is warmer, but they weren't not white. Like they weren't black, or they weren't some very dark shade. Okay, and they were all blue-eyed for the most part. I think the Western hunter-gatherer, all of them were blue-eyed. So there's one part there, and also this whole thing of a fixation on skin color and pigmentation. I'm so tired of this argument, as if that your identity, or when we talk about racial differences or genetic differences, and we look for who we are and where we come from, to think that this is only skin deep and it's just a question of skin color is so laughably stupid. It just goes to show you can put any initials you want in front of your name. It doesn't make you intelligent. But that last line was just so telling. It was the mask falling off. There is no great replacement if the first occupants of this island weren't even white. So, infinity immigration then. Because the skin pigmentation of the Western hunter-gatherers, who formed the original trunk of the tree, of the family tree of the peoples of Britain, well, they weren't white. Their skin pigmentation wasn't white like the people today. So therefore, infinity Somalis, or Somalians, whatever they're called, infinity Pakistanis, infinity Nigerians, until the native British people are no more, until the people who are the descendants of those Western hunter-gatherers and the descendants of the Anglos and the Saxons and the Normans are just no more. Swings and roundabouts, right? Is that what you would say in old Blighty? This is very dangerous. This is genocidal talk, and they're getting away with it because no one holds them accountable to their own hypocrisy. Like I said, would you do this to anyone else? Everyone is mixed in some way. I mean, look at the Cambridge definition, right? Not arriving from anywhere else. That's the meaning of indigenous. So, are there people that just sprung up out of the ground? Did the people of Malaysia, the daughter of the Malaysian immigrant, did her Malaysian ancestors just spring up out of the ground of Malaysia? Can they find me one population of people who just sprung up out of the ground and didn't move in from somewhere else, didn't wander the globe looking for a homeland? So that's the hypocrisy bit. I just want to get that out of the way, and it's an example. I think it's a fair example of the kind of bullshit that was being blasted all over Twitter. And luckily, there was quite a few of the good guys, people on our side, calling them out. And this is my contribution to that effort. I also want to talk about, what is the truth then? These people are lying. These people like Rachel Pope and Sarah Owen and the rest, they are lying. So what is the truth? Well, over the past year or so, I've been reading the books and watching the videos of people like Robert Sepper and Graham Hancock. And they've convinced me that we are a hybrid species. The human race, the human being, is a hybrid species. Out of Africa is not a legitimate theory. Um, and we don't have one common ancestor that wandered out of Africa and then, oh, because it's a bit colder in the north, suddenly his skin changes to white, his eyes turn blue, he's got blonde hair and a totally different cranial shape, and DNA. No, we have many different blood types, we have different DNA strands, and there is very convincing evidence to suggest that modern humans, are the result of interbreeding amongst various hominid species. And what this means is that we are all mixed with various elements of the human species. Okay? So you're not going to find any race of people, or any nationality of people, or any ethnicity of people that doesn't have some mixed ancestry to some degree. But when a people has remained in one area for thousands of years, I think that they should get the right to claim to claim themselves in the native population and the indigenous population. These are all terms that have been created by white people. The idea of indigenous people and native people are creations of the modern white mind. But we give this status to other people. Surely it should apply to our peoples as well, the peoples of Europe, white people. Are we the only non-indigenous peoples in the entire world? Every other group gets to be indigenous to somewhere except us? All those other groups also have mixed ancestry. The Native American, what a joke of a term. The Native American, people who crossed over from the Eurasian continent and populated the North American continent. They did not just spring up out of the North American continent. They came from somewhere else. Yet we call them the native. We've already looked at the example of the Palestinians and the Malaysians and their mixed ancestry. In China, there are hundreds of distinct ethnic groups living in China. Do we deny the existence of the Chinese? And that there is a thing called the native Chinese person? Do we deny that because of the mixed ethnic heritage of Chinese people? Of course not. And this is also interesting because, we often get accused of being, well, I don't even, what are we allowed to say on YouTube anymore? Like, this is another reason why I don't feel great desire to make videos on YouTube. I don't like this. I don't like these platforms. I don't like supporting these people and using their products when they're being so unjust. And I don't know what you can say on YouTube anymore. But I know that I'm under the radar. I don't have a big channel, so I'm going to still say whatever I want. So yeah, we get accused of being Nazis and all sorts of things. And one of the bugaboos is that the Nazis believed in racial purity and blah, 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 which I think is a red herring and a total fabrication and exaggeration and misinterpretation of what people like Hitler were saying. Because no, there is no pure in the sense of only one race. There is no race that is the same. They never interbred with another group of people, another ethnicity, another tribe. As I said before, going back further in history, before the advent of civilizations and various ethnicities and all sort of thing, there were hominid species, human-like species, different ones. Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Homo erectus, they all interbred, and the result is us. So we are all mixed. There's no one pure strain of human being. Superior, maybe? Yeah, that's another topic. But pure? No. So we are not all one race. We are not all the same, certainly, but no one is just springing up out of the ground and staying in that ground forever and only breeding with the same exact people, the same exact gene pool forever, and there is no admixture ever. That's not possible. And this bludgeon is used to beat British people, but it also happens to everyone else who is European or white. Not very long ago, I was getting into a debate with all sorts of Italians because they are Italians, doing the same thing that these British people do, denying their own existence, saying things like, Italy's not even a country; it was just created in the 1800s. So what does it even mean to be an Italian? We're such a young country. Who even is an Italian? We haven't even existed until a few hundred years ago. Uh, we have in our history we have French and Germanic and Celtic or Celtic ancestry. So what does it even mean to be an Italian? Anyone can be an Italian, and therefore all these Africans that are coming to Lampedusa and the rest of Italy are just as Italian as anyone else who's been there for thousands of years. No, no, that is just not true because those Africans aren't 100% pure either. And if an Italian who has some, you know, we have the Romans who absorbed the Etruscans, and then you have in the north you had the Celtic populations. You have the name of some regions like Lombardia still reflects the Lungobardas, the Germanic peoples that lived in that region. Uh, so let's just say that and these that forms the Italian of today. And now if he steps foot in Nigeria, I wonder if these people now would say, oh, well, now he's Nigerian, he's African. No, but when an African steps foot on European soil, now he's European. Now he's an Italian. Now he's British. It doesn't mean anything to be British. Anyone can be British. There's no such thing as a native Brit. There's no such thing as a native Italian. This has to stop because they're wiping us out of our own history books. They're wiping us out of our own existence. And this is very, very dangerous because, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, if you want to destroy a people, first you must destroy their roots. Well, I can't think of a better way to destroy a people's roots than by erasing their origins, who they are as a genetic group separate from others, regardless of the fact that they have a mixed ancestry, because we all do. So it is very wrong to say that there's no such thing as a native Brit because they have the ancestry of the Anglos and the Saxons and the Normans, etc. Because they've been on that island, and that's the population that has been there for thousands of years, literally. Longer than other populations who no one has a problem calling indigenous, like the Maori, who've not been in New Zealand for an equivalent amount of time as the Brits have been in Britain. Yet no one hesitates to call the Maori indigenous. So we need to take these people head on and smash these lies. Because, as we can see, they're wiping us out of fairy tales. They're wiping us out of the history books. They're wiping us out of Netflix series, diversifying everything, race-changing actors. Anne Boleyn is now a queen, okay? If this keeps going on, in future generations, they will crack open books or turn on their books or watch series, and they will think that Anne Boleyn was black. They will think that there's no such thing as a native British person, that we're all British. You just step foot on Britain, call yourself British, and that's it. Same for Italians. Same for Italy. They will think that Augustus Caesar looked like an Indian. Dot, not feathers. Okay? And this I can actually attest to this. I mentioned in an old video that when I was growing up, there was an animated series of the Avengers or the Justice League, one of the superhero teams, and the Green Lantern was drawn as a black guy. And because I was a kid, and that was my first exposure to that character, I assumed that he was just always black. And then it wasn't until later that I saw the original depictions of the character, and then there was a film with Ryan Reynolds, who's not black, playing him, and I was, oh yeah, so yeah, he wasn't black originally. But if I had not known that information, if I had not found out the origin, I would have continued thinking that the Green Lantern was a black superhero. That's what's going to happen with characters like King Arthur, Lancelot, historical figures like Guinevere, Joan of Arc, Anne Boleyn. Okay, very serious stuff here. And then also, one thought that came to me as well was, uh, like I said earlier, indigenous peoples, native peoples, is a term that comes from the civilized mind of white people. And I've repeated this often, that I believe that all peoples deserve the right to exist, deserve the right to a homeland, and to self-determination. But that right is earned. It's not given to you. It's not given to anyone. So the British people, and the Italians, and the French, and the Irish can talk about and lay claim to their indigenous status, their native status. But the only people who get to be native, the only people who have the right to live somewhere, live in a homeland, and have self-determination are those that defend themselves from invaders and subversives, and those who work to maintain the existence and the prosperity of their people and of their civilization. So you can claim, rightfully, to be an indigenous Brit, an indigenous Italian, an indigenous European. Claim it, shout it from the rooftops. Be proud. Be proud of who you are and everything that it took to make you, and all the accomplishments of your ancestors. Definitely be proud. And don't let them take that from you. But you have to fight for it. Because, like I mentioned earlier, the Etruscans, they were a native population of the Italian peninsula, completely absorbed or crushed by the dominant Romans. Now, the Romans weren't a completely different racial group, but the Etruscan civilization fell to the wayside and was replaced by a different one. And their status as the native, indigenous peoples of the Italian peninsula didn't mean a damn thing. So if we don't fight for this right to be the native peoples, if we don't earn it, it will be taken from us. Like all rights, as we are seeing now with this COVID farce, rights must be earned and must be defended because they can be taken from you. Whether or not you believe that your rights are God-given, inalienable, well, other people don't believe that, and they believe they can take your rights from you. Your right to movement, your right to freedom of thought and of speech, your right to bodily autonomy. Similarly, your right to be the indigenous person of a land, your claim to a homeland, your status as the native resident of an area of this good earth can be taken from you. So we need to really fight for this with everything we got. This is one thing that I think we can do online and in the real world. If you see cunts like Rachel Pope and Sarah Owen denying the actuality, the reality of the Great Replacement, and denying the reality and the existence of native European peoples, take them on, respond to that tweet, retweet it, criticize them, send it on to other people who can maybe provide information about DNA, genetics, anthropology, haplogroups, blah, 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 all that technical stuff. Okay? We have to take these people on. We have to expose their lies. And we can do that online or in the real world. We can do it both. Many times we think about we have to get offline, we have to fight, take this fight to the real world, we have to do something in the real world. Well, this is something you can do in both spheres, and it will have an impact. We have to, because always remember, it's not just debating the other person on Twitter, which is obviously in and of itself a waste of time. You're not going to change anyone's mind on Twitter debating them. But do it for the audience. Do it because other people will see your interaction, will see your Twitter debate. And if you are exposing their lies and providing the truth, then you will help in getting more people awake to the truth and on the side of the good guys. All right, that's it for me today. Take care, everyone. See you next time.